No way they actually do this. We're still early in the offseason, but the news and rumors continue to flow. Countless potential moves will be on the table, and the Mets have been linked to one very accomplished infielder, currently on a roster for an NL Central team. I am Adam Choit, your host for today here on Mets Digest, and before we dig in on all that, I just want to give you guys a quick heads up, a quick reminder to please subscribe, because as you can see, nearly 68% of you guys watching these videos are not subscribed, so please take a quick second to do that. It is appreciated for sure. Let's get into it. The Mets have been linked to the Cardinals infielder, their Cardinals third baseman, Nolan Arenado, and there's been a bunch of reports about that, several reports, so I want to dig in on those. Let's do that. He's a 10-time Gold Glover who remains a strong defender at third base. It's Arenado's bat that has declined in recent years, which is not unexpected for a 34-year-old who has been around for as long as he has. But he's still good for pulling the ball in the air, which would play well at Citi Field. Whereas Arenado was picky with who he was willing to waive his no-trade clause with last winter, he's a bit more open this time around. That, in turn, could be an opening for the Mets, who should also be attracted to his burning desire to win. That's from Zachary Reimer from Bleacher Report. Let's continue on here. Why it makes sense for St. Louis. The idea behind this trade is that it would be a bad contract swap, with the money going from New York to St. Louis meant to balance what's owed to the two players involved. Sean Manaea, $50 million through 2027. Nolan Arenado, $42 million through 2027. $5 million potentially to be paid by the Rockies. That's also from Zachary D. Reimer, kind of laying out a possibility for the Mets and Cardinals, a salary swap, a swap of two players coming off down years, to say the least. Manaea on the mound and Arenado at the plate. Let's continue on with this story here. Here's a Kurt Bishop from SI.com. New York might have an opening depending on what happens with Pete Alonso in free agency. If he walks, the Mets could shift Mark Vientos over to first base in order to accommodate Arenado. At this point, Arenado is blocking some of the Cardinals' younger players, including Weatherholt. Clearing a spot for Weatherholt should be one of the main reasons St. Louis trades Arenado this winter, in addition to clearing some of his salary. This is from Mac Baltus from sportingnews.com. For the Mets, Arenado could fill a long-standing void at third base, another potential option here. Surrounded by stars such as Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, and potentially Pete Alonso, Arenado would not be counted on as a middle-of-the-order bat, but rather as a stabilizing defensive presence with the potential for offensive upside. That is a lot to respond to. Those are a bunch of reports to respond to. Where do we begin to break this down? Because I am totally against this trade. I think this is a terrible trade. I think this is an awful trade. And I can almost say that without even considering who the Mets will be giving up in for Arenado potentially, because his last couple of seasons at the plate have been awful. Why would the Mets want to sacrifice offense for defense and defense for offense? The team should be aspiring to have a balanced club, acquire players who are talented and upgrades in all these areas. Don't sacrifice one area to strengthen another. You're only going to be weakening the team in that area that you were previously had a strength in. So I'm very much against this trade. We can take a closer look at some things here, because as you can see here, where is it? There we go. Nolan Arenado. I wanted to just pull up his profile here, not so much in terms of where he's born or what his height and weight are, but just to reiterate that this man is 34 years old. He is on the downside of his career, to say the least. I'm not saying it's impossible that he's going to have a bounce back seasons offensively, because his numbers were that bad the last couple of years, and we'll get into those momentarily. But at age 34, in a, let's just say, post-steroids era, not accusing Nolan Arenado of anything specifically, not him specifically, but players age a little quicker, more players in MLB throughout the league tend to age quicker. So for a team that's looking to get younger and more athletic, this is definitely not the direction to go in, as far as I can say. And here's a look at his career numbers, what I was referring to moments ago. Look at that OPS 666, the devil right there. that is the devil. If you want offense, then your OPS is 666, and that's not a small sample size at all last year. I mean, check that out. This man had 401 at bats plus the 28 walks and hit by pitches. So I'll let you guys tally up the total plate appearances, but just terrible. 666 OPS for a corner infielder, for a third baseman. That is just bad, to say the least. And look at that, 289 OPS and under 300 OPS. That's just awful. And the year before, 719. That's not that much better. That's pretty bad for a starting infielder, for a starting third baseman. That's we're looking at backup level production right there. So that's hundreds of at bats for Arenado over the course of those seasons. And even looking back to 2023, 774 OPS. That's not exactly all-star level. That's not exactly excellent for a corner infielder, for someone you're hoping to get power out of and get a big offensive production out of. Looking at some of his Colorado numbers, I would guess that those are long in the past, and we're not going to see him belting upwards to 40 home runs around there anymore. I think those days are long gone for him, in my opinion. And let's take a look here. I figured I'd share this as well with you guys, because on top of having a downturn the last 2-3 seasons, even for Arenado, his postseason numbers are not particularly good either. They're terrible. Again, when we're looking at postseason numbers for players, for the most part, we're looking at smaller sample sizes. Of course, here we see 33 at-bats and a 152 average, 143 OPS, and a 242 slugging. That's a 385 career OPS in the postseason. Not exactly what you want to see, even from a small sample size. Somehow his OBP is lower than his average. That sounds like some kind of magic trick. But nevertheless, what do you guys think about Arenado potentially being traded to the Mets? Is there anything you're willing to give up? I think this would be a huge risk, and it's about more than so much what you're giving up, because you're going to be giving hundreds of at bats to someone who's going to OPS in the high 600s, low 700s. That's what he seems to be projecting to be looking at in the next couple of years. But let me know what you guys think about Arenado. Let me know what you think about any other potential transactions you'd like to see this offseason from the Mets. Again, like the video, share, subscribe, do all the things, and let's go Mets.